This podcast is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Out of the Ashes presents Missing Dad.
I might have ended up on the wrong side of the tracks if Pops wouldn't have pulled me back and said, yo.
Each episode is a thought-provoking interview with people across all walks of life to see how they were affected by missing key pieces in their relationship with their
I
dad.
told him as a youngster, he'll be the greatest man alive.
And now your hosts, Coley Harris and Amar Mountain.
Welcome to another episode of Missing Dad. I'm your co-host, Coley Harris.
And I'm the other co-host, Amar Melton.
Do you want to introduce the guest?
I think I do. Today we have one of my mentors and a friend, a legend in the hip-hop media publishing space, like a legend. This guy, one of the kindest guys I know when I was young, 18, just became a father myself, hungry to try to break out in this internet thing. Doing my Googles and my research, I stumbled across a name, and I saw that he had all these accolades, right? And I said, let me fly him an email. Look, I'm trying to get my network out. Let me just see. And I sent him this email, and I can't tell you what it says. It's something along the lines of, I'm trying to get my thing started, man. You got any tips? And he said, yo, let's go sit down for dinner. And this was 13 years ago at this point, and you've been a friend to me and my father ever since. So, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that are listening, we have someone who was cited by CNN, New York Times, TMZ, Yahoo. I had to write that down. I wanted to make sure I hit all of them, right? But this guy also built a platform. Him and his partner built a platform in '98 that serves as a source for people in the industry and hip-hop lovers, right? It's referenced by all the great artists. I was listening to an episode of another outlet, and Jay-Z said when his album dropped, it's one of the only outlets that he checked.
Wow.
Allhiphop.com, one of the co-founders, Grouchy Greg Watson, ladies and gentlemen.
What's up? Thank you for that intro. You know, I was trying not to tear up. Thank you, though. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, man. Thank you for coming on. So how's everything going?
Everything is going good, man. You know, just living the dad life at this point. You know what I mean? I got a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old, and they keep me busy.
9 already?
Yeah, 9 already. I know, man. The time goes by so fast. You know, I'm looking at the past 9, and if the past 9 go as fast as the next 9 go, you know, if the next 9 go as fast as the past 9 went, I'm like, dang, this kid's gonna be 18.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, it's just going quick. You know. So, that's why you see me at the gym all the time. I'm out there trying to work out. I'm like, yo, the time is flying. You know, they always say, the closer you get to the end of something, the faster the time goes. And I'm like, oh, Lord, hold on. Let's slow this down a little bit. Yeah.
So you said a 9 and a 4-year-old?
Yeah.
9 and 4.
Yep.
Nice. Yeah, we can start there. So, right, your lifestyle, I imagine, from your work, you constantly traveling and things like that. How did having children kind of change that dynamic?
It slowed everything down.
Yeah.
You know, Rev Run used to tell me early on in my career, Run DMC, you know, we would be out places, or I say this humbly, you know, we'd be flying around different places on the private jet and all that stuff. And he'd be like, yo, man, you need to have kids. You need to get yourself a wife and have kids, because it'll anchor you, and it will, you know, you'll be way more focused than you are now. And I was like, man, I'm focused now. I'm in the club every night. You know what I mean? I'm networking with this person and that person. And, you know, I'm out every night of the week working, you know?
Right.
Man, as soon as I had my first kid, I hit him up and was like, bruh, I know exactly what you mean. Like, everything changed, you know, the focus changed, the focus on work changed, my goals changed, you know, and, you know, who I wanted to be as a person changed. You know what I mean? I knew when I had my first son that, you know, traveling 7 days a week wasn't going to cut it.
Right.
You know, coming home drunk and high and reading him a bedtime story with liquor on my breath or whatever wasn't going to cut it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So It was a 360-degree turn. No, a 180. 360, I still be doing the same thing.
Right.
No, it was a 180-degree turn. You know, I completely turned my life around in a different direction.
Yeah. So you feel more focused and stuff now?
Oh,
or?
man, way more focused. You know,
Yeah.
when you got two little youngsters who you're looking at their future and knowing that even no matter what, I could provide them with $1 trillion and their futures are uncertain because of the world that we live in, climate change, you know, all these things that I'm sure we're going to get into in the discussion. But, you know, it changed everything, you know, in terms of saying, okay, I've got to really impart into these children. Not only do I have to leave them things to try to give them a head start that I didn't have or a better head start that my parents gave me, but I also need to leave them with like something that is way more intangible than money or anything, and that's, you know, knowledge.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me ask you something. You mentioned your parents and your upbringing a little bit. Tell us a little bit about, you know, what I mean, your upbringing. How did you grow up? And
Yeah. So I was born in Albany, New York. I don't want to give the year, you know what I mean? But my parents are an interracial couple. So my dad is black and my mom is white. And, you know, when they got together in the early 70s, well, they've been together since the late 60s. But when I was born in the early 70s, interracial marriage was illegal in a lot of states still, but it was legal in New York, which is where my pop happened to move up to. So my dad is from the country in North Carolina, a small town called Norwood, and my mom lived in Albany, New York. So my dad went up there after he graduated from college to, you know, in search of work. He met my mom, and, you know, the rest is history.
wow.
He moved down here to Delaware in the early 80s following a job. And then, you know, we moved obviously down here with him. And, you know, we've been here ever since. I mean, I've been here in Delaware since like 1980.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not like I grew up there. It's just literally where I was born. And yeah, the upbringing was it was a little difficult. You know what I mean? I got 5 brothers and sisters. You know, my dad had a really bad drinking problem starting. It probably was starting to bubble up when we was moving from New York to Delaware. And then by the time we got into like the mid 80s, early 90s, you know, he was full blown alcoholic. So 5 brothers and sisters. My dad was coming and going. I give him credit, you know, that, and let me preface this too. My dad's been sober now for 30 years.
Good.
That's what's
So,
up.
you know, it's not like, you know,
Congratulations,
we've got a
Pops.
great relationship.
Yeah.
You know, he's somebody that I look up to, you know, but the early part of my life, the first 24 years was filled with, you know, the kind of household drama that would come with somebody being a really bad alcoholic. You know what I mean? He lost a good job, you know, DUIs, crashing his car, you know. It was a running joke when friends from high school would come over. It would be very common for him to come stumbling across the hallway and pee in the hallway because he thought he was in the bathroom. He was that level of drunk. That happened all the time. And, you know, we just kind of got used to it. You know, used to if we had friends over, we knew that was going to happen. And we started to laugh at him like the friends did in order to kind of avoid being embarrassed. But he always provided for us. You know what I mean? Even when he lost his job, he still held it down and, you know, had to work his way back up really from the bottom. I mean, this is a guy who had a degree in chemistry. You know what I'm saying? And had a big job at ICI, which is now AstraZeneca, and he lost it and had to go start selling used cars. You know what I'm saying? Like it was that kind of fall. And so, you know, it was a lot of turmoil in the early years, which led me to want to get out of my house all the time. You know what I mean? So that's how I found hip hop, you know what I mean? And that's how I started doing what I do now.
Wow.
I was reading somewhere, it said when you were like 3 years old, You would tinker with your dad's tapes or something like that.
All that. Yeah, he had my dad was a gadget guy, so he had shortwave radios. He had reel-to-reel tape machines. Him and my mom bought me my first little tape recorder, with the record, play, pause button that you press the button and the tape popped up and you slid it in and put it down, and I was infatuated by all those things, specifically the shortwave radio, because it was you were supposed to open it up. You know what I mean? Like, so I could open up the back of this radio and look at all the transistors inside of it and the lights that were flashing and turn it on and off. And then to top it all off, when you turn the knob, it's a shortwave radio. A lot of people probably don't know what shortwave radios are, but you can get radio signals from all around the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you got FM and you've got AM, and all of those radio signals are dependent on the atmosphere. You know what I mean? FM travels a shorter distance, AM travels a longer distance, and then shortwave travels. You might turn the knob and catch a broadcast from California.
Right. What? Why did he have that?
It's just the way he was, He had I would come down in the basement a lot of times, and he would be threading together his reel-to-reel machine instead of, he had record players and all those kinds of things too. Like, I would go through the records that they had, which is what led me to, starting to listen to music and really identify what music as art. But I would also watch him thread his tape machine. And then he'd play, and it'd be songs by the Temptations or whatever. He'd be down there, typical drunk beer, tearing your beer, drinking and emoting to whatever he was listening to. But later on, when I started going to college for audio engineering, and even when I started my professional career, when I was, 15 years old, when I got to the studio, I knew how to thread all the tape machines because I sat and watched my dad do it. It was like second nature. So the all of the equipment that he had around ended up in some way, shape, or fashion playing into, what I eventually went on to do. And, when I was in 5th grade, I knew that this is what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to be in recording studios. I was infatuated by the equipment. And he drove me around Wilmington. And, finally, some guy, I can never remember what studio it was, but I want to say it was First State Audio, which I don't even know is still in business. But they let me come in. They sat me down. They let me beatbox into a microphone, and they recorded it and all that stuff. Let me hear it back. They didn't give me the tape, but they let me hear it back because they could see that it was probably abnormal for somebody of my age to be this into mixing boards and understanding how they worked and, knowing what was going on. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Right. So did that kind of lead you to starting your label?
yeah, absolutely. By the time I was in 9th grade, we were in recording studios that were down in Newark, and they were real recording studios. People always be like, Delaware recording studios, they were legit recording studios with all of the equipment that any band or any person would need to record. And at this point in time, they were mostly recording bands. I would even venture to say that we were probably the first rap guys that came into this particular studio, Target Recording Studios, which, if you know the history of the local music scene here, that became like the preeminent studio that every band and every rapper, started recording out of at one point or another. And the brothers, Mark and Keith Moss, their father, Joe Moss, was an audio architect. So if you go out here on the riverfront, or if you go to different places, like at the art museum, he has sculptures that if you stand under them and say something, you'll hear the sound somewhere, 10 feet away or 20 feet away. That's what their father did for a living. So these guys were audio guys right off the bat. So when I got up into their studio, it was like, boom, we were there with a serious mission to record. They knew that I and, the guys that I was in there recording with were serious about recording. And yeah, 9th grade is when it started. By 12th grade, I had my little label up. My first year out of high school, I dropped the first records on my brother. They started getting reviewed in Billboard and all the other magazines that were out at the time. And, you know, that was 93. And then by 97, I was getting into all, you know, in the early phase of launching all hip hop.
Wow.
Nice.
Who was you? So you said the group when you was recording. Were you part of a group?
I was part of a group. Yeah. So the first group that we were a part of, before we got to the actual studio, we would record in the basement. And so we had my boy Haran, who's now a professor, a doctor at the University of Florida in English. He was the main rapper. And his uncle gave us a set of Synsonic drums. Now, for anybody out there listening, you probably got to Google what Synsonic drums are. But Synsonic drums were like the first kind of, you know, like automated drum machine.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you got a pair of drumsticks with them, and they had rubber pads on them, and you could bang out drum sequences and record them. And then it would quantize them, which means it would, if you was playing a little bit off, they would, you know, make it sound, you know, so that you was playing accurately.
Yeah.
And then we would rap over them. You know what I mean? I still got all those demos. I listen to them all the time because, you know, the lyrics and all that stuff, like they're pretty good. You know what I mean? I look back and I'm like, yo, they was dropping we was dropping some really good lines.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, we started off in the basement doing that, and our first group was called the Rising Force Rebels.
The Rising Force Rebels.
Yeah, you know, it was like a little influenced by PE and, you know, down in Newark where we would be recording, we recorded out of so I was raised in a development called Brookside. And right behind Brookside was Kimberton. I think Kimberton now is called Whispering Pines.
Right.
But that's where, like, my neighborhood was like white and a little bit of black. And all of the people, most of the people in my neighborhood worked at the GM factory that was up the road.
Right.
It's not there anymore. And over in Kimberton, the majority of it was Section 8.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I would go over there, and it would be mostly, and I mean, you know, there was white people there. There was plenty of white kids there too, but it was majority black.
Right.
And it probably still is. And it would be popping over there because the basketball courts was always packed because they had big courts that was, you know, regulation size, but then they had little 7-foot courts that we could dunk on.
Yeah.
So, you know, it'd be all the little kids would be over on the court, all the big dudes would be over there playing. And this is like, you know, probably like 86, 87. So there was a lot going on there besides, you know, playing basketball.
Right.
There was a little bit of drug dealing. There was a lot of hip hop, a lot of break dancing. That's where I first saw people break dancing.
Right.
And I was like, this is it. This is it for me. This is what I want to do. You know what I'm saying?
With your life.
With my life.
Yeah.
That's it. I was like, I'm sold.
Yo, I put a post on Facebook not too long ago, and I had to ask, like, did people really break dance? Because I only seen it in the movies,
Right.
man. I couldn't believe it.
We used to walk around with linoleum on our shoulders,
Yeah.
cardboard on our shoulders, so that if somebody wanted to battle or break, you would roll it out on the street and break dance on the street.
Right there on the spot.
On the
Right there
spot.
on the spot. Right there on the spot.
I ain't never told you about that.
I mean,
Of course, I didn't do it. You know, I ain't no break dancer.
It
but-
was real, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? My first big battle, Run DMC, was at Dickinson High School. You know what I'm saying? And it was, I had just learned the windmill with no hands, which was like a big deal because most people at the time, when you did the windmill, you would use your hands to keep yourselves pushing.
Yeah.
But I had just watched, I don't know, it must have been Beach Street or something. You know what I mean? I saw Crazy Legs, New York City Breakers and all that. And one day I just realized I could windmill with no hands. And when I got to the Run DMC concert, I was battling everybody that was my age, windmilling with no hands, and, you know, battled people in height. And when I was in 6th grade, my boy, he's still my boy to this day. They call him Radamez. I don't know if you know him. He's out in Wilmington. But back then, he was Baby. You know what I mean? That was his name, Baby. A lot of people still know him as Baby. But we battled each other, like, in front of everybody in 6th grade. I mean, the principal had to come break it up. There was that many people, you know, watching. You know, so, yeah, breakdancing was a big thing. You know, shout out to Radamez. You know, he's still my guy. He's legendary here in Wilmington in terms of the art scene and graffiti scene. But yeah,
Nice.
So you're building this label, right? And you're starting to see some success, right? Where was your pop at in this? Were you like going home like, hey, Dad, look, this is what I got going on? Or
not really, because he started to try to start recovering probably around 90. Well, he's got 30 years sober now. So, I think that he stopped drinking like around 97, somewhere around that time period. So the 3 years, I was just doing it. You know what I mean? And he was focused on, he had a couple false starts where he would start, he would stop. I mean, he would actually have us take him to the bar, pick him up because he wasn't allowed to drive. And this is while he was trying to get started with his sobriety. You know what I mean? So it was very weird. And I would drive him to his AA meetings, you know what I mean, that were mandatory at the time. And so there was that kind of thing going on while I was still trying to get my hustle on. Now, when all hip hop got started and he had, probably in his first 5 years of sobriety, I mean, he was very instrumental in my success. He would drive me back. I didn't have a car at the time. So he would drive me back and forth to the train station in the morning or the bus station wherever I was going without fail. You know what I mean? If I needed a ride or a ride home, I knew I could call him and he would be there to drop me off or pick me up. Sometimes both, a lot of times both.
I ain't gonna hold you, man. Your dad sound like a dope dude, man.
Man, listen.
Even through the alcoholism, because I grew up with that shit too, man. But your pop, you know what I mean, he sound like a dope dude, man.
He's a pillar in the community. I mean, I can't tell you because he stayed in AA 2 times a day for 30 years. Not because, well, probably for his own sobriety, because helping people helps you stay sober, but because, he was there helping other people get sober. He was always very clear to me that one of the ways he stayed sober was helping other people, and even when I started getting into AA and going to AA because I had a drinking problem that I had to check, and, it suddenly dawned on me what he meant in terms of seeing a young person come in with the same problem you had, knowing that you have the skill set now to help them stay sober, and you become a mentor to that person throughout their sobriety, whether they fall off the wagon or, no matter how many false starts the person might have. So, I mean, we go to breakfast every Sunday, and, I mean, no matter where we're at down there in Newark, somebody will stop at his table and be like, oh, hey, Curtis, hey, Mr. Watkins, what's up? And I'll know right away it's somebody that, he had helped. People of all races, all ages, all ethnicities. It's crazy. But, yeah, he's well known for it. And, I'm very thankful, Yeah, I'm very thankful for what he went through because it definitely helped me with my own sobriety,
Yeah, was it a challenge, like being around alcohol and stuff, or like with the nature of your business with being in the clubs and stuff like that?
I mean, well, first of all, I think that whether I was doing all hip hop or not, I would have I would have had a problem with alcohol. I'm not the kind of drinker that can casually drink 1 or 2. It may start off that way. I may start off 1 or 2. We're hanging out this weekend. Oh, yeah. Grouchy Greg, cool. We had some drinks in the bar. But if you hang with me for 6 weeks straight, it's going to be the whole bottle of Henny. It's going to be the hardest stuff you can get. No cut, no chaser. I mean, I used to drink absinthe, bottles of it. Friends of mine used to send it to me from London. It's 125, 130 proof.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you can't taste it. It's a different kind of liquor. And I mean, it was like heaven sent. I loved it. But yeah, being in the industry definitely did not help it because everything was free.
Yeah.
I mean, the first party I went to in New York City, I'll never forget it. It was a party Russell Simmons was having. Everybody was there. Jay-Z, Paris Hilton, the chicks from En Vogue, the women from En Vogue. I mean, just, people that I had only seen on TV up to that point.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I remember going to the bar with my little money and saying, yo, let me get a vanilla vodka, vanilla Stoli, and some ginger ale. That was my go-to drink at the time. And they was like, oh, yeah, it's free. And I was like, free? What you talking about? It's free. He was like, yeah, it's open bar. And I'm like, open bar? I mean, I only heard open bar at weddings.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Bruh, I drank 9 of them in like a 3-hour period.
Dang.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how far it went.
Yeah.
And I remember, and I always tell this story, but I remember sitting down on the couch because it had been a long day in New York, taking the bus up, walking around, doing whatever we was doing, and then that was like the highlight of the night. And I remember sitting down, and the lights were on, and I remember seeing Ashanti over here and this person over there, and what felt like a second, I just closed my eyes for a second. When I woke up, the place was empty and the lights was on.
Oh,
yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh no, I mean, I wasn't that far off. When I got outside, people were still hanging around on the street. It wasn't like a 4-hour pass out. But I've done that though. I've passed out on the train in New York City and missed my stop and end up somewhere in Brooklyn or someplace that I'm not supposed to be. And I'm like, damn. It's 3 a.m. and the next train to transfer ain't gonna be here for another hour and a half. I've done everything that the typical person who has a drinking problem has done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
right. Yeah. So I'm gonna shift the interview just a tad, man. We've been doing Missing Dad since 2019, 2020, somewhere in there. We took a brief intermission because of COVID, and we just didn't know which way the world was going. Right. But once we saw that things were kind of stabilizing, we got back to it. And we're in this digital media publishing space now, which is interesting because we're putting up clips on our Instagram. If you're not following us and you listen to at Missing Dad Podcast, right? But we putting clips up on our Instagram and seeing 30,000 views, 16,000 views, 1,000 views here and there. And we're starting to feel some success, and it's like motivating, it's encouraging, and it's really dope to see how the algorithms kind of are playing to us, and that's just Instagram. Like we're seeing success in YouTube too. My point or my question is, right, with building all hip hop, when did you kind of know like, yo, this is big? Like when was that moment where like this
right
is
away?
it?
Right away.
Word?
I mean, one of the reasons that led me to my partner, Chuck Jigsaw Creekmer, is, one day, I don't know what I had put up on the site at this time, and this was probably before we were even official partners. Yeah. And whatever stats I was using or looking at the time, I was like, yo, this says 1 million people was on the site last month. I'm like, in 1 month it'd be 200,000, 500,000. I'm like, these are real numbers.
Right.
Like, this is, and that's when we started sitting down together and saying, yo, we need to take this serious and really put together our brains and build something, which turned into all hip hop. Right. But the domain name was that helped. That helped it, it, because my first domain name, obliquerecordings.com, like nobody could remember that. Nobody could remember how to spell it. It was too long, So I went on a spree of registering domain names, and all hip hop was one of them.
Right. And I guess the SEO at the time probably helped it too.
All that.
Everything played
into it. There was at that point in time, I mean, SEO was like very basic.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, there was only Yahoo. That was the major one. There was Yahoo, Lycos, and, GeoCities or something. You know what I mean?
Right. Yo, I saw this study, 2013. I can't remember exactly who did it, but this study with these researchers, and they said that black dads are like more involved than people think. Like I'm more involved than people think, right? But the stereotype is that we're not in our children's life. What do you think could be done from a media standpoint? Like, do you think like hip hop and these are black publishing media, digital publishing platforms and stuff like that? You think we have like an obligation to kind of push?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I hate to sound negative, but the nature of the internet is people go to the places that publish what they want to see.
Right.
So you end up in these very, defined silos, you know. So, you know, if you are a 38-year-old white woman in Nebraska, you're never going to look at positive images of black dads unless you are actively seeking to expand your thoughts on other people and other races. You know, the internet uh, is very good for that. And I say good for that, I mean it in a negative way.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's very good for putting people into these boxes, or people only seeing the information that they want to see. And then when you like something, the algorithm continues to show you things that you like. You know, my algorithm, I mean, listen, I've cleared my algorithm out 25 times, and it will not stop showing me big booties. And, you know, I can't even open up my IG in front of my girl. Just kidding, babe.
That's funny, man. So right, you got kids, a 9-year-old and a 4-year-old, right? Both boys, right?
Yep.
Both boys. And now we're in this interesting time in online and tech where artificial intelligence is popping, right? I showed one of my old heads, Chat GPT, man, he almost fell out.
Oh, wow.
Look, I'm not going to say his name because he listens to the pod, but I said, yo, he was trying to put together his mission and vision statement, and he had different notes and everything. And this is when Chat GPT just came out. I said, look, give me the words. I said his vision is whatever, right? He a couple points, and I said create a mission, vision statement, and a couple other things. Boom, and somebody else was there and they watching. Man, they start typing paragraphs. Man, he almost fell out. So that changes things, right? That changes things for our youth because for the listeners, I got a 12-year-old, should be 13 next week. I got an 11-year-old boy, and I got an 8-year-old boy. The future that they're walking into is not the future that I came up in, right? Yeah. So what do you encourage parents, fathers, like what should our children be in to give them the best competitive advantage with this new world?
Yeah, you know, well, a few things. You know, it's almost like you have to do, in my opinion, what I do is two things, right? I don't shield them from technology, but I also make sure that they still do the basic stuff, like go outside and play on the damn jungle gym. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, you can't be in the house all day on these devices. You know, it's scientifically proven that it changes the makeup of your brain, the way your brain is wired, staying on them, depending on whatever you're looking at. Not to mention it's not good for your eyes. But you can't fight the technology, you know, and as a parent, you have to try to immerse yourself into the technology that your kids are using. You know, I'll give you a good example. You know, my son is really big in Roblox. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And when he first started playing, he had all these sayings that he was using, obviously, that were native to somebody who plays Roblox. Right? And I'm like, man, what are you talking about when you talk about bed wars or something spawning? You know, like, and one day I was like, you know what? Let me just sit down with him for a few hours and let him play and watch what he's doing. And as I watched, I was like, yo, this is really amazing. Not only is what he's doing amazing, but the fact that he figured out so many intricate pieces of how to play this game that I was like, I got to be in on this. Yeah. And also to understand where my business is going. Right. Yeah. Because what he's doing now, is what I was talking about at the Art of AI that we were at. You know, they're part of what's called Generation Alpha. And Generation Alpha is going to be the first generation that's majority black and brown people in the United States. It's going to be the first time that that we are the majority. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And it's happening at a time where AI is going to come along and replace a lot of the jobs that were available to us. Yeah. You know what I mean? Manufacturing, customer service, you know, all of those types of, I mean, almost anything that a human could do is going to be replaced. I mean, y'all know I be walking in the mall all the time. And I was in there the other day at like 7 a.m. I walked past the Tesla factory, and they got the robot in the window. The robot that Elon Musk and those guys are building that's going to be, you know, a robot in your house. Go get that beer out the refrigerator. Go get that whatever. Go make my dinner. And it's going to be a full-size human robot doing it.
No.
I mean, it's coming. It's coming. Like I feel you. It's almost like if you were alive when the horse and buggy was coming up against the car, and people say no, never, it's not gonna happen. Or when the internet was coming in newspapers, and people said no, people are always gonna read these newspapers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's coming. Self-driving cars, with no people in them driving it, like where you're just sitting in the back seat and it take you where you want to go. Cars that fly, that's all going to be here in 10 years. We're going to see it. They have somebody on Mars in 2035. Like the AI is going to evolve what humans are capable of doing probably by 100 times. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
100 times. I mean, Elon Musk's company that he's building, XAI, his goal is to use AI to understand the universe.
Yeah.
I mean, that's an incredibly powerful mission statement. We've been trying to figure out the universe since we've been conscious.
Right.
So, I mean, what I would say to parents out there is, you have to push your children in the direction of technology. You have to make sure that they're being educated and that they're, on par with other ethnicities when it comes to learning about AI and technology. I mean, it's just where the future's going.
Yeah. Speaking of the future, so where you see yourself going at in the future with your business?
Oh, with my business or with my future or my business?
In general.
You know what I mean? In general. That's a good question, man. I don't want to say my age, but I ain't going to be a young hip-hopper forever. I know we like to think that we can do it, but I mean, all hip-hop is 25. If we go another 25, I'll be, 75 years old. I mean, forget it, man. Nothing to be ashamed of. I turned 50 last March.
Congratulations, brother. Welcome to the club.
I mean, look, man, it's crazy for all y'all who haven't hit 50 yet. You know what I mean? It's you don't feel old. I still feel young.
Yeah.
But that number 50 is way different than 49.
Yeah.
It's different than 48. It's different than 30. 50 and you like, yo, okay, the reality is I might not get another 50. That means I'm going to live to be 100. How many of us live to be 100? I mean, with all the technology that's coming out now, I read that my son, who's 5, and his generation, with the advancements in medicine and technology, they're all going to live to be at least 100. That ain't like me making some up, in the Bible, they live to be 800 years old, no. For real, like with the advancements in medicine, the kids that are 5-year-old now in 2023, majority of them are going to live to be 100. So anyway, man, I don't mean to go off on a tangent, but my goal, I have a personal goal for myself, and that's to be around the next time Halley's Comet comes around, which is 2063, which I will be 88. I just got my mind focused on that.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Having enough money to live so I don't run out of money, so I've done the math on, okay, if I want to, live on a X amount per year, and I got to do it till I'm 88 or 90, I'm going to need this amount in liquid cash, not including inflation.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I've kind of thought that out in terms of what my goal is, what I need to be comfortable for the next 38 years, basically, And that's what I work towards every day. What business, what are we going to do with all hip hop? How much are we going to sell it for? If we sell it, does it reach that goal for me, that liquid cash goal that I need?
Yeah.
If not, I'm not interested in selling it. And, there's a number of factors that have to be right for us to sell all hip hop, but we know that at some point we have to exit. We might not sell 100% of the whole thing because we both want to make sure that we leave something, tangible assets to our children. But the reality is I mean, we could hold on to it till we die. You know what I mean? As long as the internet and, all this stuff is around. But, what excites me about having all hip hop is the fact that it's the kind of brand that can exist wherever technology is and whatever people are going to be listening to hip hop. I mean, forever, as long as the earth is turning. It's just starting to pop up in India and, emerging markets is my point. But it is fluid with the technology that's around it. And so, that when I look at all of the things we have left to accomplish, I'm like, yo, this is another 30 years worth of work.
For sure.
You know what I'm saying? So that's exciting. But, for me and what I think about for my future personally, it's staying around to see Halley's Comet and, having that goal. Because there's only a few people who have seen Halley's Comet twice in their lifetime. You know what I mean? It's like a weird, it's a weird thing on how it comes. I think it comes like every 80 or every 90 years.
Yeah, I believe
like
it's
that.
80, yeah.
You know what I mean? So if I can make it that far, I will have seen it twice, even though I missed it the first, when it was supposed to be here. Yeah. I would think I was out smoking weed or doing something, and I was like, yo, old man, Haley's Comet came through, man. Damn, I'm supposed to go see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Supposed to look at it, but yeah.
Nice. I really don't have any more questions, man.
No
You covered
more questions. You know what I
you
mean?
you covered a lot, man. I think you gave the people a nice framework on what they should be doing with their kids, and we appreciate the transparency around talking about your father and that stuff, because I imagine that's not easy to talk about.
Nah.
The thing is it wasn't easy to talk about, and even me and my battle with alcoholism and substance abuse. I mean, the reality is look, it's more common than it is uncommon.
Yeah. Right.
So I don't feel any shame in it, because I know the majority of people out here who are listening are either dealing with it, have dealt with it, or got family members that are dealing with it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's just a common occurrence in our community and every community, whether it's the opioid epidemic or alcohol or it was crack. I mean, in America, there's always something.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So if I can, make one person out there listening feel comfortable to pursue their sobriety and understand that there's no shame in or no stigma in having battled addiction, is actual power in beating your vices and beating the things that you thought maybe had you against the ropes,
Yeah. I'm the type of man, I always, our story, me being incarcerated at 21 years old when he was 2 years old.
Used to see you coming in and out of we used to run into each other. Not me being incarcerated, but I have a lot of friends who are incarcerated, so I'd be down at Smyrna visiting them, and I see Coley come popping out. I'd be like, oh, what's up?
Yeah. So, and like I said, just being able, that part about your dad, I'm going back to your dad again, man, because I don't think people understand the significance of how important it is when you got somebody that's in a challenging situation, challenging life. They always come, right? But having the wherewithal, thinking about his family, his kids, and his own life to be able to come up out of that thing, man. That's the thing that's the thing that always sticks with me. And I know that everybody ain't built like that. You know what I mean? But when we have people that do, I like to think I'm one of them people. They came home. I could have went to the left. My son could have rejected me. A lot of things could have happened. But we stuck in there, you know what I mean? And we stuck in there and we pushed through, man, to build that relationship. So I really appreciate that, man. Excuse me. And I appreciate you sharing that with me, man. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's dope. There's a parable that I always think about, and there were two twins, and their father was an alcoholic. One was successful. One of the twins was successful, and one of the twins was an alcoholic. And somebody asked the unsuccessful twin, what happened? He said, I had no choice. My dad was an alcoholic. And they asked the successful twin, what happened? He said, I had no choice. My dad was an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
It just comes down to, at some point, it's the decisions and the choices you make, and, whether or not you're cognizant enough to be able to recognize and be honest with yourself and say, I have a problem. One of the first step in AA is recognizing that you are powerless over this disease or this problem that you have, and recognizing that you can't control it. That's the first step, is admitting that you are powerless over
this disease.
the disease.
My life has become unmanageable.
And my life has become unmanageable. You know what I mean? I'm going to turn it over to a higher power other than myself, whatever that higher power might be. You know, I used to be uncomfortable saying, I'm turning this over to a higher power, and the higher power is going to be God. When I first started, I would say, yo, my higher power is actually going to be AA and the people that are in it. It doesn't have to be this higher power where a lot of people get caught up, and some people believe in God, some people don't, some people question God, some people don't. That can cloud your ability to recover if you say, oh God, why did you do this? Or you pray to God for some action, you know, and or for something to happen, and it doesn't happen because you have to take the action. You know what I mean? I'm not like a big Bible thumper guy, but I do know the saying, faith without works is dead. You know what I'm saying? So you have to be able to take those steps yourself. And, you know, that's for anybody out there listening, you know, like alcoholism is a progressive disease. It didn't just start with my dad or drug addiction or any of those things. It didn't just start like one day you wake up and you're a full-blown addict. It's progressive. It happens slowly. And before you know it, you're like, damn. For me, I would be like, damn, I've been out 7 days for the past 3 months every night drinking. Like, okay, forget alcoholism and all that. Just put that aside for a minute. My liver ain't going to be able to take this but so much longer. Yeah. I mean, I got an uncle who drank himself to death, literally drank himself to death till he died. My mom's brother drank himself to death till he died. You know what I mean? Like, it runs on both sides of the family. So, you know, just again, for the people that are out there listening, you know, it's one of the things that really impacts our families and breaks up our families.
Right.
You know, I mean, I did crazy things that I would never do sober. I ruined probably every good, healthy relationship I had that had any potential because of drinking. You know what I'm saying? As soon as I stopped drinking, I'm like, oh, wow, I can be in a relationship. I can be a good dad. I mean, I didn't even want to have kids for a while because I was like, I'm never going to stop getting it popping. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. I want to end on a different note. Yeah. What's the so you've been all around the world. What is the most interesting thing that you've experienced in your life, your career, and all that?
Right over there with my boy who's off camera, my boy Dev, you know. Well, my younger brother is a rapper, architect, and he blew up in Japan. He had a big single that was the intro music for one of the biggest anime shows on TV over there. Oh, wow. And so they would fly him over to perform and do all these things. So one year we went over there with him. He didn't know we was coming, and we just flew over and surprised him, and me and one of my other boys, Matt B. And so being in Tokyo for the first time was just like a incredible experience, you know. And when I was posting on IG, my boy Dev hit me up and was like, yo, I live here. I had never met him before in person. And he was like, yo, I'm here. I'm in Tokyo. And I'm like, you know what I'm saying? Like a dude who's right from around the way, knows who I am, is in Tokyo and is offering to like come pick us up in a car. Yeah. Right. You know, so that allowed us to explore Tokyo in a whole different way. The irony of it is though, the time we was there was the worst snowstorm they ever had. Like, I'm probably in like the past 100 years. Yeah. So it was just like being in New York City, you know, where like it was a big snowstorm. It was all this stuff going on. But Tokyo is an interesting place because you're not allowed to smoke outside. Everybody smokes inside. The restaurants, the clubs, and they don't smoke no weed. You know, like that's illegal. I remember I asked somebody, yo, where can I get some smoke? And they, you know what I mean? And this is like, no, you can't. You don't want to ask about any of that. You don't want to talk about any of that. It's like very taboo over there. We eventually found some, but you know what I'm saying? You look hard enough, you find anything. You know what I mean? We eventually found some, but it was a great experience being over there, you know, and experiencing a different culture. There's not a lot of English, so you got to really learn how to maneuver. Thankfully, we had Dev, you know, getting us around. But yeah, I would say being in Tokyo in the worst snowstorm in their 100 years.
Yeah.
And being there was it was a once in a lifetime experience. And then seeing my little brother, you know what I mean? Because this is a dude that I've known obviously since he was born, but we slept in the same bed together coming up. You know, me and I have two brothers, so we all stayed in the same room, three of us. So seeing him realize his dream and coming up from a stage with explosions around him and rapping in front of 5,000 screaming fans, you know, and being on, you know, behind stage watching this was just like him and his boy who also lived in Newark, Jace Mace, watching them, you know, live out their dream in Tokyo. It was just crazy. It was a great experience.
That's dope. Yeah, man. So I want to thank you, or we want to thank you for your time, for your guidance, you know, both on and off camera, man. We definitely appreciate it. And, you know, we look forward to connecting again.
No doubt. Thank you. Thank you.
Sure.
With that, I'm your co-host, Coley Harris.
And I'm the other co-host, Amar Melton.
Thank you for listening to Missing Dad.